Okay, everybody, good evening and welcome to Wednesday Night Slides number 79. This is going to be an all train show tonight, no muffler men or anything like that. Um, so we'll jump right into it, assuming that I can jump right into it. Well, I'll do the share screen first, don't I? You think after 5 years I would understand how to do this? Um, Fire up the new version of my slideshow software. And you should all see the title slide at this point.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. As usual, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to jump right in. I actually have a way to monitor the chat now. Uh, Sandy Mitchell, toast to the late Don Phillips, whose passing was reported today by Trains magazine. Yes, Don was a great guy. We're gonna miss him. Um, Before we get started, a little commercial message. I now have Wednesday night slides on my website, riverphotographer.com/Wednesday night. Um, if you forget when the slideshow is going to be next, it will be posted there. There's even a button for a direct link to the Zoom program. And if you scroll down, which I can't do, this is a screenshot. If you scroll down, there's also a YouTube link to the previous show. So if you ever need to figure out what day I'm doing the next show, it'll be posted at my website, riverphotographer.com/Wednesday night. Okay, into the show for this month. We're going to start off with an operation that got away. The San Pedro Trolley ran out in San Pedro, California, near the port of Long Beach. And it was a pretty cool operation. I saw it in October of 2009. It used two replica Pacific Electric cars uh, and connected the uh, cruise ship port with downtown San Pedro. It used two replica Pacific Electric red cars, and they had a third red car, actually a third authentic Pacific Electric car that over the years was actually rebuilt from two other Pacific Electric cars and lost its truck somewhere. But they acquired it, put trucks under it. I never did see that one running. The hangar in the background, not the big hangar, the shed with the roll up door there. That's actually the trolley barn. Unfortunately, this line was discontinued around 2015. They were going to redevelop this area into a major tourist area. The plan was to discontinue the streetcar, redevelop the area, and put the streetcar back in. Um, they took up some track, and unfortunately, they decided that they weren't going to put it back. As far as I know, the three streetcars are still in that shed in San Pedro at the port. Did some pacing. There's a street right along it there at the time. Did a little bit of pacing with a Pacific Electric red car. It's kind of cool. It's an operation that got away. It's just too bad. We're going to jump from 2009 to something a little more current now. We're going to go to Scranton, Pennsylvania for Steamtown's Railfest, which is held October 29th and 30th. We start off with one of my personal favorite locomotives, 2124, on display there. A little bit of storm light, cloudy skies overhead, low light coming in under the clouds. We did 2 night photo sessions out there, and here's the first setup getting ready to go. 4 steam locomotives from throughout Steamtown's history. They did a great job. The Steamtown did, the Park Service did, in making sure that all 4 locomotives had headlights turned on, number boards lit. Pretty cool. So it got dark and we started the night session. Now, none of these engines are under steam. We use smoke bombs to put steam in there. But from left to right, you have Canadian Pacific 462-2317, which was one of the primary engines during the Scranton years, but it also ran a couple of years when Steamtown was in Bellows Falls, Vermont. Next to it is Rahway Valley 280 number 15, which did a lot of the operations when Steamtown was in Bellows Falls. Canadian National 282-3254, another one of the primary locomotives that ran in Scranton. And then, of course, Nickel Plate Road 759, 284. While it never ran at Steamtown itself, it was leased out while it was in Vermont to the High Iron Company and ran some of the biggest steam excursions of the late 1960s. We use 2124 posed next to a fireless cooker. Once again, if I didn't mention it earlier, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to unmute yourself temporarily, jump in, and I'll be happy to answer them. And Grand Trunk 482-6039 was lit up. The United Railroad Historical Society of New Jersey had brought up their Railway Express agency truck. We posed it next to this locomotive. Then on the way out of the park that night, we noticed that Delaware Lackawanna had conveniently parked two trains. You get into the same frame near Bridge 60 Tower in Scranton. So we stopped and lit that up. Next day, we're back at Steamtown for some daytime scenes. We start off with Nickel Plate Road GP9 514 being turned on the turntable. We'll get to the stuff in the background in a minute. And Baldwin Locomotive Works number 26 and 060. It is not lettered for a railroad because it actually served as the Baldwin plant switcher in Eddystone, Pennsylvania in its operating days. Here's our daytime lineup of the steam locomotives from the previous night. And then I used my iPhone and did like a panoramic shot, 180 degrees. They moved the 759 out of the way and put it back on display closer to the core complex. So here's three of the locomotives still there, as seen from the boardwalk that goes up to the Steamtown Mall. Other cool things are going on. They always have a Ring of Fire demonstration in the shop during Railfest, where they heat up a locomotive tire as if they're going to put it onto the wheel center. More daytime scenes. Here's conductor Andy Ottinger coming across the turntable. Then at the end of the day, they spun 26 on the turntable, full 360, so folks could photograph it. And this fellow here from Steamtown, he got out in the end of the turntable, and as the turntable spun, he shook hands and high-fived everybody gathered along the railing there. So here's 26 riding the turntable at the end of the day. And then the night session. The second night session focused on diesels, starting off with Delaware Lackawanna's freshly painted Erie Lackawanna C424. Steamtown was a little bit slow in advertising the night photo session. It's actually put on by the Iron Horse Society, Steamtown's volunteer group. And details weren't finalized until about 2 weeks before the night sessions. But they put the tickets on sale, limited to 30 people a night, less than 2 weeks before the event, and it sold out in under 24 hours both nights. Delaware Lackawanna also has freshly painted this RS3 from Delaware and Hudson, which looks really sharp. Norfolk Southern was supposed to send a heritage unit, um, which never got there. So they grabbed like just a regular NS engine out of Taylor Yard in Scranton and brought it up there, all covered with road grime, with a mess. It was sitting next to the D&H locomotive to its right. We put it on the turntable and got it out of the way. Really wasn't a whole lot of point in using it. Then this Lackawanna switcher posed with a Stuart tank. A bit of a World War II setup. And then we went over to the shop area. Lackawanna Railroad F3. It's not actually a Lackawanna F3. It's actually former Bangor and Aroostook, painted up for Lackawanna. But it's a Lackawanna F3 sitting in front of a actual Lackawanna diesel shop in Scranton. And then we finished off with this Lehigh Valley locomotive, also on the Delaware Lackawanna roster, posed with a Lehigh Valley business car. All right, a little more current stuff here. We're going to start off in Claymont, Delaware. Here comes an Acela northbound from Washington, D.C. And regional train behind an ACS 64. And then when he cleared, the southbound regional showed up. Has engines on both ends. That's because of the East Tunnel construction projects in New York. Rather than take trains when they arrive in Penn Station through the tunnel to spin them on the loop at Sunnyside Yard, a lot of them just simply change ends now in Penn Station to keep traffic in the tunnel down. You see one train going away, one train coming here. A couple of rail fans out on the platform. They're waiting for something special. You'll see that in a second. SEPTA made an appearance, one of their Silverliner 5 train sets. And here's what the show was. This is the actual very first day of revenue next gen Acela service. This is actually the first revenue departure. It left Boston at 6 o'clock that morning, August 28th, as you can see on the signs on the station there. So this is the very first revenue run coming through Claymont. Then headed out to it's a different day, headed out to Bryn Mawr. Here's another Silverliner 5 set coming in. Silverliner 5 on the right, Silverliner 4, the older cars on the left at the Bryn Mawr station. And Amtrak's Pennsylvanian going east from Pittsburgh, going by the former Pennsylvania Railroad Tower at Bryn Mawr. Silverliner 5 set, it's going past the old Pennsylvania Railroad substation at Bryn Mawr. Amtrak is now modernizing this substation, but I just heard recently, last day or two, that the plans are to keep the Art Deco main substation building in the background there. Here was the catch of the day. The Keystone trains between New York, Philadelphia, and Harrisburg operate push-pull, engine on one end, cab car on the other. And the cab cars are all former Metroliner cars, the oldest rolling stock on Amtrak. They go back to the 60s. They've been running with just a yellow end with black stripes, but Amtrak has started to paint some of these cab cars into their new phase 7 paint scheme. They look pretty sharp. And just recently, I was going to go up to give a program to the Tri-State Railway Historical Society up in Morristown. And I decided to go up early and hang out on the Raritan Valley line, the old Jersey Central main line, now used by NJ Transit. I was hoping to get some of NJ Transit's unusually painted locomotives. My primary target was the locomotive that's wrapped for the Atlas Model Railroad Company. I've never shot that engine. So I got to Raritan, and the first train I saw had the Atlas engine pushing east. Um, I when I shoot these commuter trains, I don't like shooting them too much when they're pushing because the headlights are off when they push. So I try to get a little more broadside like I did here to minimize the effect that, the showing that there's no headlight. Coming west into Raritan is this unit here. It's got a banner on the side for the armed forces, one of many armed forces locomotives on NJ Transit. But probably the most interesting one, we'll call it that, the most interesting one is this locomotive here with the Screaming Eagle on the front of it. Here it is going past the former Jersey Central Boyd Tower in Raritan. And then the Atlas engine made its cycle wherever it was going, came back out again. Here it is going past Boyd Tower. From there, I went over to Bridgewater, not very far away, near Bound Brook, New Jersey. Westbound train splitting the signals there. And then the Atlas train locomotive pushing back in again. Once again, because it's pushing with no headlight, I shot a more broadside look of it. And then another westbound train came out. At one time, 4 tracks here, now down to 2. A few days later, I went down to Perryville, Maryland to attend a meeting of the Perryville chapter of the National Railway Historical Society. And I started off my day in Newark, Delaware, and got one of the next gen Acelas in revenue service coming through. Of course, with these coming out now, these are on short time, 2 years maybe now for the older Acela sets. Here's one going north. That's Davis Tower on the extreme left edge of the picture. The line in the foreground, that is Norfolk Southern's line that goes down to the Dunmarfa Peninsula. And then Perryville itself has some pretty neat sunsets. The sun swings around, it gives a nice glow to everything. Here we see a northbound train crossing the Susquehanna River. And this bridge here is scheduled for replacement over the next decade. They're already doing all the preliminary work. They've got all the planning done. They're starting to put down stakes in the ground where stuff's going to go. So it's another decade, and this will look vastly different. And then not very good photos, but I was running errands a couple days ago and just happened to catch the local train that goes about 2 blocks from my house here every morning. Conrail's CA11 heading north. And it had 2 switchers tucked in behind the road power. The Chambers Works of DuPont still gets some in-plant switching, and apparently they had 3 switchers down there. I thought they had 1, but obviously here's 2, and apparently there's a 3rd one still there. These went as far as Pure Land, where SMS rail service is located, just another mile up the line. We're in Pennsylvania, New Jersey here. And from what I understand, SMS has purchased them. So, and right now, Chambers Works stopped doing their own switching about a year ago, maybe a little bit less. They contracted that out to SMS. So it's SMS crews down there anyhow doing the work. The big recent event, however, just happened this past Saturday and Sunday, mostly on Sunday. The Friends of Philadelphia Trolley sponsored a photography day on Woodstown Central in Woodstown, New Jersey. And they asked me to set up the photo run-bys, which I was glad to do. We had a good time. This is the day before the photo day. The day before the photo day, they were doing trains for first responders. And they have a pair of Reading FP7s, actual Reading FP7s. And on First Responders Day, on Saturday, they were running the FP7s on either end of their passenger train. So here we see it crossing Woodstown Alloway Road, not far from Woodstown. Uh, at Mannington, down near Salem, New Jersey. Here it is out on the causeway. There's another FP7 out of the frame on the right, going the other direction. Woodstown Central's green coaches look really good, though, with the Reading FP7s. Oh, I meant one of the, let me go back, wish two. These are actually the same picture. Um, I shot this, and one of the most common mistakes I still make after 50 years of taking pictures is I sometimes put the train when it's horizontal like this, strongly horizontal. I put it too low in the frame. So this is composed badly. It's got too much sky, not enough water. The water is more interesting than the sky. So I went into Photoshop. I added some canvas to the bottom of the frame. I told Photoshop just to fill it in with AI, and that's what it gave me. So 2/3 of the water in the foreground here um, didn't exist in the original photo. That's all what Photoshop added to the scene. Is it cheating? I don't know. It's pretty accurate representation of what was there, just water. So anyhow, here's the FP7 902 with the train at Cedar Lane. They were also running their 060 number 9, ex-U.S. Army, ex-Virginia Blue Ridge, ex-New Hope and Ivyland on a freight train with riders in the in a gondola and caboose at the back. Here you see it coming up the hill from Oldman's Creek, one of the steepest grades on the railroad, which in South Jersey, steep grades are relative. We're not talking Colorado here. And then going through downtown Woodstown. Back to the FP7s. Here we are back at Mannington, going through the Mannington Mills complex. Mannington Mills used to be a rail shipper. They currently are not. SMS/Woodstown Central is trying to get them back as a shipper. And then going through Alloway Junction. The dirt road on the extreme right hooks into the woods just out of the frame there. That's the old branch line to Alloway, taken up probably in the 1940s. Thus, this is Alloway Junction. Same location, just a different lens. And then the freight train going over Memorial Lake in downtown Woodstown with the gondola full of people cleverly hidden by a tree. They're where the caboose is on the left-hand side. The next day was the photo day. We rearranged the two trains slightly. We put the FP7s back to back. We reconfigured the freight consist so it looked better for photos. And we started off north of Woodstown with the FP7s on the all green consist. This whistle post here goes back to probably at least PRSL days, Pennsylvania Rating Seashore Lines, if not back to West Jersey and Seashore days. But for years and years and years, the folks living in that, this is a private driveway going in the foreground here. The folks living in the house there have put up pumpkins and corn stalks on it. And then the steam train started off with a little bit of clouds, but we reconfigured the train so that Lackawanna boxcar was directly behind the locomotive. It's not an actual Lackawanna boxcar, it's ex-US Navy. We had 60 people on this trip, which I was worried to be a few too many because some of the photo locations are pretty tight. In fact, this one here, we're sandwiched between the tracks and the highway. But as you can see, everybody played nice all day long. We were able to fit everybody in at all the photo stops. We did encourage folks to bring step ladders and step stools, which helped a lot. Our second run bys with the FP7s in the same spot and the steam train. We then headed down to that causeway in Mannington and did a run by with the freight train. and then with the FP7s back to back. And then back to Alloway Junction for several run-bys. We ran the steam locomotive twice through here, maybe three times. Three times. We ran ahead of schedule. Railroad was really, 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 really efficient at moving two trains over the line. And the photo line was really efficient at getting set up and getting the photos. We ran ahead of schedule most of the day, so we had some bonus run-bys. Here come the FP7s at Alloway Junction. The coaches are actually ex-Jersey Central. And then we got up to South Woodstown, where Woodstown Central is headquartered, ahead of schedule for the lunch break. So we did a couple of run-bys with just the FP7s there before breaking for lunch. Sandy says now we need some VBR lettering on the tender for Virginia Blue Ridge photo special with the 9. I think we got to move the headlight at the same time, though, to do that. After lunch, everybody was told to come back out to drive to Memorial Lake. There's no easy access there to get there by train. So after lunch, everybody drove to Memorial Lake, and we posed the FP7s out on the causeway for folks who wanted to fly out with drones and get shots of them. And then we did some run-bys. Then the steam locomotive also did its thing. And then just north of the South Woodstown complex, they got a big field there that's owned by the railroad, actually. So we use that for run-bys. And then we got on the train. This road, quarter mile north, is all the further we went, to Watson Park, a small community park on the south end of Woodstown, which is fairly open. We did run-bys there. I've never seen anybody ever hardly in this park whenever I drove by, and I thought, this would be the one day that they have like a town festival set up in the park or something, but they didn't. So this is the parking lot. There's a off to the left is playground equipment and other stuff. It's not just a gravel lot. Once again, running ahead of schedule, so we did a few extra run-bys with the steam locomotive, mainly because this was it for the day for the daytime portion for the steam locomotive. We turned it loose, let it go back down to South Woodstown for servicing. And then we did our run-bys with the FP7. Oh, no, we took the FP7s in the middle of Woodstown, another half mile up the track, and did a few run-bys right through the middle of downtown Woodstown. Still running ahead of schedule, got back down to South Woodstown, so it was time for another set of run-bys there before we broke for dinner ahead of the night photo session. So we set up a run-by with the 902 and the 9 together. And one final daytime run-by. In the background there is the 2003. That is actually an original Pennsylvania Reading Seashore Lines GP38. It would have probably run on this branch in the 70s under PRSL. And then while we were getting ready to go to lunch or dinner rather, somebody with a 65 GTO showed up, and we posed it with the FP7s. And I had been trying to figure out how to get an old car for the night photo session for one of the scenes. I had been offered the use of Model Ts, but Model Ts, and even with the steam engine's way too modern for a Model T. FP7s certainly are. So I asked the guy, "Hey, are you local?" He goes, "Yeah, I live just north of Woodstown." I said, "Well, we're doing a night photo up there tonight." Come to find out, he lives a half a mile from where we're doing the night photo session. So he agreed to come back. We'll get to that in just a minute. We started off our night photo session down in the South Woodstown yard, the FP7s and the 9 together, then the 9 by itself. Then we went up and set up back at that house just north of Woodstown where he done the run-bys first thing in the morning. This is one shot where the flashes didn't go off, but I really like the way it turned out. So that's how it looked without flashes. And then here's the scene illuminated with flashes. I did talk to the property owner, that guy with the house there. He's actually very friendly, loves the railroad. We had to have it in his front yard. There's our GTO parked there in the shot. I wish I had known we were going to have use of that car, because I would have changed things around a little bit and used it more often that night. But I didn't know he was coming until 2 hours before the night photos. We backed him out of the way, did another shot there. And that wrapped up our photography day on Woodstown Central. Before we break up, though, I got one more flashback for you. By accident or design, I did a lot of shooting with Amtrak's Turbo trains back in the 80s into the 90s. They were running on Empire service, mostly Western New York State to New York City. They were also running from Montreal down to New York City. Here we see one in a snowstorm in Utica, New York. And coming down from Montreal at Plattsburgh, New York. And with an FL9 at Rensselaer. And of course, the Hudson line below Rensselaer is just fantastic for rail photography. Here we see a turbo going through Chelsea, New York. And then out of Breakneck Ridge near Cold Spring. Along the Hudson at Peekskill. Coming out of the tunnel underneath the Bear Mountain Bridge. On a foggy day up near Cold Spring, going north. And that's Storm King Mountain across the Hudson there. Croton North, near where the old New York Central shops are, now Metro North shops. Off the Bear Mountain Bridge. And into Penn Station. Now, these locomotives or train sets did not always go to Penn Station. They used to go into Grand Central Terminal until Amtrak pulled out of there. I guess it was 1993. I had to check that. But anyhow, right before Amtrak pulled out of Grand Central Terminal, there was the line split at Spuyten Duyvil, just on the north end of New York City. They put in a connection track, restored a connection track. So instead of trains making a big left at Spite and Dival to go down through Manhattan into Grand Central, they stayed along the Hudson and went down to Penn Station. When Amtrak was ready to pull out of Grand Central, I made a few trips up there to shoot Amtrak in that short stretch from Spite and Dival to the tunnel, the Park Avenue tunnel, where they go underground to get into Grand Central. Because I was concentrating on capturing the last Amtrak trains in the Grand Central, I somewhat accidentally wound up also shooting a whole lot of turbos and a whole lot of FL9s, because that was the power at the time. So here we are at Spite and Dival. This is where the train made the big left-hand turn up behind it there, leave the Hudson and go down through Manhattan to access Grand Central. Today, Amtrak goes pretty much straight across the back of the frame. You see the tower back there. It goes past that. The tower's gone now, but we'll go past that tower and in. Here we are at 125th Street in Manhattan. Old searchlight signals. Pretty famous location on the old New York Central is the big cut at Spite and Dival. You got the Ship Canal, which connected the Hudson and the Harlem rivers, East River, Harlem River, one of those rivers, just to the right. Coming down on the Park Avenue Viaduct, approaching the tunnel for the entrance in the Grand Central. The High Bridge in New York City, that was at one time an aqueduct. Today, you can walk across that. Train ducking into the Park Avenue Tunnel on the final approach to Grand Central. And something you can't do anymore for a lot of reasons. One of the turbos going past old Yankee Stadium, which is also no longer there. Amtrak did refurbish one set of turbos, and they made a nice reappearance in the mid 1990s. And I was living at the time up in North Jersey, about 45 minutes from the Hudson Valley. So a lot of times before going to work, I would shoot over to the Hudson Valley to shoot the turbo train in the morning. And yes, back when you work for Railfest and Railroad, being late for work because you're shooting a turbo that morning is perfectly acceptable. So here we see that refurbished turbo, cool paint scheme, going through Roa Hook, a real neat location just above Peekskill, New York. And passing under the Bear Mountain Bridge. As seen from across the Hudson, also in the Bear Mountain area. And coming out of Oskalwana Tunnel. My only, I never saw the, these were Roar turbo liners. Amtrak had three different kinds of turbo liners. The Roars, the ATMs, I believe they were, that ran out of the Chicago area. And then the big United Aircraft turbos. I never saw the ones in Chicago area. My only encounter with the big United Aircraft turbos were after they had been retired and were sitting in Ivy City Engine Terminal. There on the far right. This is in 1978 or so. However, I did see Via Rail Canada's United Aircraft turbos a few times. Here we see one going through Brockville, Ontario. And Dorval, just outside of Montreal. And also just west of Montreal. My turbo shooting came to a rather unfortunate conclusion, I guess, for the turbos especially. Um, New York State had paid to have several sets refurbished for high-speed service between Niagara Falls and New York City. They rebuilt a few sets of turbos. They were going to upgrade the tracks. Then the whole project just collapsed. Just collapsed. So the refurbished turbos, I guess one set got into service. For the most part, though, they just languished. They wound up being stored at the Amtrak facility down in Bear, Delaware. And here we see them about 3 or 4 years ago on their very final move, being towed out of Bear, Delaware to head up to northern New Jersey, where they were put into a siding to be used for first responder training. So that was the end of my turbo shooting. And that is actually also the end of the program. The next program will be October 29th. I want to thank everybody for watching tonight, and we will sign off for the folks who are watching the YouTube replay.